started 25 years ago, collecting data on visitors to botanic gardens. And as I tell everyone, when I do my garden presentations, I'm the world's expert now on visitors to botanic gardens or gardens in general, though my daughter will tell you all that I'm the only one, so I'm also the worst. So I've been, as I say, doing a solo promotion of tourism to gardens for the last 25 years, which is now only, I think, now becoming realized. To that end, and as an old geographer, I've been to 123 countries of the world and looking mostly at gardens. Though in 2013, I was asked actually, it was in my own big mouth. I told everyone someone should write a book about garden tourism. And the publisher said, why don't you? And so there you see on the far left, garden tourism, and wrote that book in 2013, which has actually done very well in terms of sales as academic books go. And more interestingly, I think for us, in 2019, they asked for an update on that garden tourism. And in 2019, I wrote New Directions in Garden Tourism and literally wrote a chapter 11 in that book because we were immediately, as it went to press, stopped by COVID-19, and COVID became the governing factor. So New Directions in Tourism certainly had some element of what were our new directions with COVID, but of course we've since emerged from that, and subsequently I've kind of done a little bit of an update. It's just about ready to go to press, as you can see on the bottom of that slide, published the third book, Critical Issues in Garden Tourism. So with that, let's go on to the next one, Anna, because we're off to the races here, and I'll let Dave go back to telling you a little bit about Engage when he gets the podium in a couple of minutes. Right. So pretty basic. What is garden tourism and what's its evolution? Next, Anna, please. This is an academic definition: a person that leaves his or her household of normal place of normal domicile for recreation and leisure purposes, may be connected with a trip for business or visiting friends and relatives. But really, there's been a lot of discussion with academia over the years on what constitutes a tourist. That's for academics. They can get really excited about stuff like that. I don't. I just kind of like to think that for our purposes in gardens, we can break them down. I break them down. Local will live within 25 miles. And here I think very much memberships and people coming to the garden on a fairly regular basis. By the way, just a quick aside, average membership in the United States constituent gardens is about 36% of their visitors are members. So there's a thing for you. Are you above or below that? That will of course vary, but I think it's a nice barometer to know. Regional within 250 miles. I consider that essentially a day trip, though of course for some people, some geographic areas, probably particularly the East Coast, 250 miles is a long way for a day trip without traffic, but it suits our purposes. National over 250 miles, but the key point there is that usually pretends that it's an overnight visitor. So that has repercussions, of course, when locally as a garden you're explaining your economic impact. If you know how much national or visitors from outside a 250-mile area is, you can do all sorts of economic calculations of hotel stay, meals that they purchase, etc., etc. We have a very poor international and national market, so that's one of my missions here, to get more of that. But for that, we also need the data to convince people that we as gardens are very important in the tourism mix. So I say we have that fourth category, national, or third category, national over 250 miles, and international, people who come from overseas, and that in the United States today constitutes about 4 million visitors come from overseas into the United States. of which many of them come to gardens, and we can talk about that. But I make the point that there's 294 countries in the world, and each have different needs. I think the Canadians that come, that cross over the border, are very different to the British that come, or the Germans that come, et cetera, et cetera. So we know that from all sorts of other international studies. And the next one, please. Thank you. Let's just give ourselves a bit of a baseline area to work from. When we closed the books in 2019, we had about 120 million visitors to gardens in the United States. By the time we were in the midst of COVID, that dropped probably about 40%. And by 2022, we were back to about 120 million. So once the gardens reopened after COVID, we were very quick in getting back to our 2019 numbers. As of today, 23-24, it's 130 million. And 132 million is projected for this year of 2024 once we close out this year. 94% of our gardens closed during COVID. 7 did not close for whatever reason. And one of them, which I think is very instructive, went from 75,000 or so visitors a year in 2018, 17, 18, 19, to 350,000 since COVID. And so COVID in many ways was quite a shock to the system. But for all of those 7 particularly, they did very well. And I think most of our gardens did as well. Anna, next, please. And so let's just look at where we are in terms of gardens and how we see ourselves within the larger tourism framework. Because prior to, as you see there, 2013, gardens, of course, were very different beasts. Originally set up as educational institutions, then as places for new plants like Leiden with tulips in 1610. Gardens as art, empire, place, and then subsequent to World War II, gardens become centered as areas of plant research, of museums. Things changed about the turn of the century, as if you recall, just about when I was getting into the business, where we started to become very relevant for this discussion of conservation, sustainability. The name David Ray, who was the vice president of horticulture at Edinburgh Botanic Garden in Scotland, was the one that told me that. Concurrent with that, in 1999, there was a book published by Pine and Gilmore. They called it The Experience Economy. They suggested it was, quote, the new paradigm. And I think in many ways, we're still living within that paradigm. Parallel with that, in 2013, tourism really started to boom. And the statistic I use, and you can move your dates out however you wish. But the statistic I use is that in 2013, Visit Britain did a survey of all of their overseas visitors, and 33%, the third of the top 3, 33% of all visitors to the UK wanted to go and see a garden. And that was only behind shopping and going to the pub. And so tourism really was a major element to gardens. And as we moved through that last decade of 2013 to 2019, we started to see diminution in money coming into our gardens from outside sources. We started to have to go to things like sponsorships, etc. And so what happened is the need for visitors, or often called earned income, money coming through the gate, became more and more paramount. And I think that still lives with us today, that we need visitors. Our emphasis now is on the visitor, and what you'll hear from me and what I've espoused for the last at least 5 to 10 years is that for gardens now, the simple fact is that we can deliver as much education as we wish. We can deliver as much conservation as we wish. We can deliver as much plant protection as we wish. But if we don't have people coming through the gate, then we become irrelevant. So that's the kind of thing that I say makes us have the need to become tourism oriented, or let's just call it visitor oriented, to go through the gate. So Anna, so this was kind of interesting to me because I think it's more than just what you see up there, which is 2021 and 22, which was a survey at the height of the COVID epidemic, where respondents were asked. This, by the way, comes from Colleen Dilschneider, to give them credit for their data. When COVID's over, what is the thing that you most wish to go and do, see, partake of? And isn't it remarkable that going to a botanic garden was number one? 70-something% of our respondents said they wanted to go to a garden. I don't think that has changed in 2023 and 24. Certainly not because of COVID, but because the drive out there, and we'll see it there in other things, is still very much part and parcel of it. You will see, as a quick aside, museums are down to about 50%, and they certainly haven't recovered. I think of most gardens that I speak to over the last year or so, all of them are not only back to 2019 levels, some of them are far surpassed it. And I think that's a slide that you see on there in terms of this potential demand. I think economists call it what is it, unrealized demand or latent demand, is still there for gardens. So we are still very much part of the mix, and we need to act on that. Anna? So this actually is are the data, and we're not going to go through it in any great detail. You can certainly see it. It actually comes from a group of gardens in the Dallas-Fort Worth, North Texas area, and it talks about the fact that gardens up until 2019 were very much at the whim of weather, actually, is what that shows. But by the time we got to post-COVID in 2022, as you can see, gardens at 95% were just about back where they were 2 years previous. But museums and zoos are still languishing. So we're still very much, if not the dominant, certainly the go-to activity for post-COVID areas. What do we know about gardens? These are just some of the statistics that I've collected over the years. You can certainly I can certainly give you a whole bunch more, which I hope are interesting, but it tells us a little bit about what we do to our visitor. First of all, I tell everyone it's the most popular outdoor activity in the United States today, with 132 million visitors. Disney gets 60 million visitors to all of their properties every year. Las Vegas, that claims to be the #1 tourist destination in North America, gets 45 million. They used to get 75, by the way. They're now down to 45. We're up to 130 million. The only people that statistic upsets are the people from Disney. My dear friend Luc Benalier from Disneyland Paris tells me this cannot be true. And I said, yeah, you can even go to Wikipedia and see it, Luc, if you wish. The other thing we have, which I think is really nice, is it appeals to all demographics. If you're in the theme park business, if you're in the cruise business, they don't appeal to all demographics. We do, and as you'll see in a minute, we're starting to see movement, and it's very heartening, amongst the millennials. The largest demographic group in the United States is now very much becoming part of the garden mix. Why do people come to our gardens? If we want them to come through the gate, we want to know why they're coming. And there's been very limited surveys as to why people walk through the door. A lady called Jo Connell came up with most of these things, and it's been proven time and time again that it's an element of they come to be with and socialize with others, particularly family. If you give them multiple responses, probably 68 to 70% talk about the socialization with others in the garden. The other big strong factor, it is done on a factor analysis, is to enjoy the outdoors. They wish to be outdoors. And I think that was certainly shown by the Colleen Dilschneider file. And increasingly, they go for health. They go for fresh air. They go for the outdoors. They go for the environment, and that is becoming more and more a strong area there. If you are a garden, which I think most of you are, the average time spent in a garden is about 92 minutes. What does that mean? It means they're there for the morning or they're there for the afternoon. There's very few destination gardens in the United States where people will come for a whole day. So in your garden, you're very much part of your local mix. If you're going to Cape Fear Botanic, and I'm sure you could spend all day there, but if you're going to Cape Fear in the morning, when they open at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, presumably they're out for lunch, they'll have lunch, and they're going somewhere else. So you're very much part of a partnership of others that are doing gardens. But the people who are coming to your garden will see another garden in the following 6 months. So we're all in this together. They love to go and compare gardens and check them out. So I know. So there's lots of stuff. So what are the trends today? What are we going to be looking at over the next, let's just say 5 years? First of all, providing experiences for all markets. That experience economy I talked about with Pine and Gilmore, it is still out there, and they want experiences that they can go and say, oh, this was great, this is what we did. Secondly, defining the market to get maximum visitation. If most of you want increased visitation, then we have to define the market we're going to go after, and then we have to go after them for that maximum visitation. I'm going to gloss over this very quickly because this is Dave's forte, and I'm certainly not an expert at it, but we need to adopt technology. It's very much a technological age for gardens, whether that be time ticketing, zip code analysis, apps, text messaging, GPS mapping, whatever. The key there, and I don't think it's on the slide, so if you're writing anything down, and we'll insert this before we send this to you tomorrow, zip codes are key for defining markets, okay? Zip codes are key. If you're not collecting zip codes, then start it yesterday. Okay, the rise of the millennials and how they behave. They now represent 40% of the demographic makeup of the United States. Unfortunately, old goats like me are disappearing, us baby boomers. So you need to do go through the millennials and figure out how they go. And we're going to talk about who's eating your lunch, museums, aquaria, zoos, and halls of fame. Now, I'm just going to throw up some examples, then turn it over to Dave, I think. So with that, we're going to go through a couple of examples, Anna, if we could. Oh, first of all, there's the idea of market penetration, where you look, comes from a botanic garden in Wisconsin. They divide theirs up into their core area, probably read from that memberships. Secondary, tertiary, I think that's my regional market that I was talking about, day trippers, and anything beyond that becomes national and international. So you can get an actual quantifiable figure as to what your market penetration is from the zip codes that you get. So Anna, yep, good. Onto this. So I'm going to do some examples here. We're going to go through them very quickly so you can see the experiences. We're going to talk about, first of all, the experiences that people are doing. This is an example from Iowa. This is Des Moines, Iowa. And here's the deal about experiences with the garden in the Reimer Garden in Ames, Iowa. They had a meeting in 2012 of all their staff for 1 hour, and the director, Ed Lyon, said to all of the staff in there, I want you all to come up with one good idea for an experience that we can use to promote our garden, because we only get, I think at the time Ed was getting 70-odd thousand people coming to the garden. We want to have an idea. Next one, Anna. They came up with this, Lego Fest, where you put Legos in the garden. They put 8 Legos in. Actually, I think it was about 19 structures, but 8 separate areas. That bison you see there is 95,000 pieces of Lego. They went from 75,000 people to 300,000 people in a university garden, and they would then started to franchise that across the country with the designer, a man called Sean Kenny, who was a master Lego builder. Heck of an idea and a real experience, as you can see, for children on the left, for families, etc., etc. Next, Anna. Next, we're going to go to Norfolk Botanic. Their deal was very much part and parcel of, they were asked to help clear the shelters promotion. So what they did was invite dogs into the garden with beer. Only well-behaved dogs, just so you understand. And from that point in time, Norfolk Botanic Garden would open for Barks Brews and the like on Friday nights. It became a major experience. It was very great. By the way, the picture up on the top right there is, I think that's the cutest picture in all my collection there of people with dogs. Here's the interesting market, if you will, part to this. When COVID came, we ended up with 3 million new dog owners in the United States, and they all should walk their dog. How many botanic gardens up to 2020 allowed dogs in the garden? But many opened, many didn't. The decision was certainly based on the individual garden's request, but the idea that that's a market that many gardens took advantage of and now have Fido Fridays, Barks and Brews, whatever it may be. Anna, next, please. And then this is Morton Arboretum. It's a show called the Troll Show, the Troll Exhibits. It's been in Morton. It's been in coastal Maine, up in Maine, up in Boothbay Harbor, Maine, where this artist Thomas Dambo takes all recycled materials and builds trolls. Those things are a legendary, symbolic Scandinavian nasty beast they put in the garden for the kids to find the trolls. Unfortunately, sometimes, as you see in the bottom middle, the trolls find the children. It's very sad. And of course, there's a marketing or a garden management lesson for you on the right. Don't park on the grass or else you'll get dissuaded by the trolls. So that was the Morton Arboretum. Next one, please. Anna. And then San Francisco Botanic Garden put 12 pianos in their garden and let people come and plink and plonk on them, as you can see the kids on the right, though they would also put some rather nice pianos in, and there were even concerts and people moving up and just coming playing that could play the piano, and it was a raging success as well. An experience that people can go and get. So there's some examples of experiences. We'll talk a little bit about marketing to new audiences, getting new audiences in a minute, but now I think I'm going to turn it over to Dave, Anna. So I think the next slide is Dave. There you go, Dave.
All right. Thank you, Richard. Man, that was just a chock-a-block full of great ideas and trends. This is a great time. I'll talk a little bit about what we do and how we fit into Richard's vision of how to increase engagement and hopefully increase attendance. And in the meantime, feel free to start asking questions in the chat window. We'll parse those over to Richard, and then we'll be done in 10 minutes or so. Our company has been around, as I mentioned, about 15 years. The place that we feel we can add most value is in providing solutions where people can use their phone in the garden space. Obviously, we don't want that to be distracting to the garden experience, but we feel that there's enough demand, and we know from working with hundreds and hundreds of gardens, including many of you that are on this call, that visitors want a richer experience when they come. They're staring at their phone anyway, whether they should or they shouldn't, and we like to try to encourage them to interact with the items in the garden. Missouri Botanical Garden on the left-hand side uses a smartphone tour. You can scan that code now if you like. We'll send you this presentation, and instantly pops up a mobile app, nothing to download. And one of the nice features is we've built a little GPS navigation so you can see the blue dot of where you are, and you can see all the points of interest that look interesting to you, and the blue dot will follow you around, and you can tap that and up pops some information about that tree, that plant, that building. And they also use it for an evening experience. So they've got a garden glow. I'm sure Richard's familiar with all of these kind of evening things. I know the Atlanta Botanical Garden has a wonderful Christmas light show, and we'll be working with them to create some interesting experiences there. So that's one example. Cincinnati Nature Center, they also have a smartphone tour. They found that most gardens are trying to eliminate signs. So if you can have a QR code near the front or maybe occasionally through the venue, you can pull up a map like you see in the middle. And then when you tap one of those markers, up will pop some information. Maybe it's a video, it's a song, it's some pictures, maybe it's even some questions to learn about, in this case, the cardinal. So fun kinds of activities. They also use scavenger hunts just to take people to different areas of the Cincinnati Nature Center that normally they wouldn't go to. You can see in the middle, the venue is pretty darn big. So there's plenty of trails that the average visitor doesn't get to. Mobile technology can help you move in those directions. Geofencing, something that I think is evolving. It's getting better and better every year. The idea that I could have my phone basically kind of turned on, ready to receive information, is pretty powerful. No one has to scan anything. They walk through the garden. If they're interested in getting push some information as they walk by that magnificent tree, up can pop some information on their phone and they can read it, watch it, dismiss it, and then just move on. So the idea of geofencing is something I think all of you should at least kind of think about, because it can really enhance the visitation and eliminate a lot of signs. One more service that seems to be popular, this service on the left is called Text Chat. We've got quite a few gardens around the country that have signs that will say, got a question about this? Text it in. And someone takes out their phone and says, oh yeah, I've got a question. When does this bloom? Could I grow this in my house? You know, people have tons of questions, but there's not volunteers and docents walking around. Those texts go into a central database. A volunteer or somebody on staff can answer those questions either on site or they could be at home answering them. And it's just a wonderful way to create an engagement with a visitor without having to have that person physically there. So texting for that use, or texting for membership and events, lots of ways to use text messaging. If you folks haven't embarked on a texting program, I think you're really missing out. Open rates for email are 25, 30%, maybe lower. Open rates for texting, maybe 90% or higher. So consider text messaging as a way to drive attendance, drive engagement while the visitor is there. All right. Richard, back to you.
All right. Allows me to. So here we find ourselves in August of 2024. And we want more bodies into our garden. What are the efforts we must pursue? Where do we go? And so I finished off that 5 trends, if you recall, about 4 slides ago, with who's eating our lunch. And I found this very, very interesting. Came to me about 2 weeks ago from the Natural History Museum in London. You remember museums are running at about 60% of where they were pre-COVID. Their idea to get more visitors is to build a garden. I just find this remarkable. So look at this. This comes from their press release. It will integrate it's to the overall visitor experience, talking experiences, to technology, the museum's garden, and they have wildlife gardens, sensory gardens, Darwin Center. They've gone on the Darwin as a living extension to our exhibits, a natural sanctuary in the heart of the city. I think they're out there trying to eat our lunch. So we have to stop someone eating our lunch. We have to eat our lunch ourselves. So let's move on to the next one, because I think it's there. The issue, of course, when people want to go to gardens is, where are they going? And I didn't put this slide on the presentation, but I certainly can, for you folks, that when people decide in the United States what they're going to do for their vacation, what they're going to pursue in that leisure activity, the first thing they figure out is the destination. Where am I going to go? They don't figure out what they want to do. They figure out where they want to go. The other things they consider are accommodations, funding, transportation, all of those kind of things. You have no control over that. And so you only have control over 2 things, which is the destination, you being the destination, and lastly, but certainly second in some cases, the idea of what they do. So I went to the web in England, and I said, boy, if I was in England and I wanted to go to the United States, remember, I think we might want to go to the United States. I live in a place called Overwallop. Yes, there is a place called Overwallop. It's right by Middle Wallop if you're looking for it. And so they say we want to go to the United States and Gardens. The first thing they do is, as I say, is research the destination. So what do you do when you type in Visit USA, Anna? This is the first thing you get. When you see visitusa.com, the official travel site of, it talks about a very specific and a very different distinct market segment. Okay, then you say, right, well, I want to go to gardens. And so you look up the top left and you can go into outdoors. It says gardens and city parks. You click on that. And when you click on that, you get what you see on the right. So where it says experiences, where to see wildflowers, that's the nearest you'll ever come to a garden on Visit USA. And by the way, if someone there, and everyone I'm sure is much smarter than I am, if someone can tell me why in the United Kingdom we'd want to promote, bottom right, Elwood, the world's tallest concrete gnome, I just don't know. Is that our priority? Apparently it is. And you can also do it regionally. And I'm going to come back to those 7, bottom left, 7 regional tourist agencies, because they are key to you as a garden. Because if you're located in, let's say, for example, you're located in Cape Fear, which is, of course, in the Carolinas, you immediately look on that little map there, and you can see that your area, you're actually in the middle area. There's a mid center there where they do those things. So that regional breakdown, because the United States is a big country, you go to California or you go to the Northwest. You don't generally go to both. It's just too far. So that's going to be key. Next slide, Anna. So this is the Travel South representative. It's just one example of the Travel South, and they are paid by Visit USA. Remember that outfit that had the concrete gnome? They break their regions down into 7 regions, which then promote those areas. Travel South USA, the regional destination marketing. The lady on the right, her name is Liz Bittner. She's a very dear friend of mine, and it is her job to promote people to come to Travel South USA. So I say to you, if you are a garden in Travel South, has any of you ever called Liz Bittner? There's her phone number, by the way. And you ever called Liz Bittner and say, I want you to push my garden because I'm not getting enough international visitors. I want to do this. So as I say, the big key for our international is getting on the destination map. And that's one of my issues. And I won't go into it now, but with APGA, I'm working very hard to make sure that APGA starts to recognize international. And many of you, I suspect all of you that are APGA members, you will have had a survey from APGA in the last week saying, we're doing our strategic plan. Would you click on here and take our survey? Do that in the survey, say, we want more international and national visitors to our garden, and the strategic plan should help us do that. There you go. That's me shamelessly pushing poor Michelle Provodnik to do that. Next slide, please. Anna. Okay, well, a couple of things. Let's just see what we're looking at for tips for these next 5 years. Audience diversification. I think you have to kind of start parsing out your markets. Who are they? We mentioned dog owners. Are they millennials? What are you doing for millennials? And if you want a really, really good millennial idea, my dear friends at New England Botanic up in Tower Hill in Massachusetts have a wonderful floral tattoo event that they run every year, and they bring in tattoo artists, and it packs the millennials in, and they have all sorts of wonderful areas or stuff for millennials. I'm sure they'd share it with you, and it's a great thing for millennials. Not so much for me and my age, with tattoos, but it was certainly good there. Ethnic audiences, we need to diversify our audiences, and contrary to many other attractions, ethnic audiences have a strong propensity to go to botanic gardens. I have been to the one in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, and it was packed, mostly with when I was there, young girls coming out on their 16th birthday for this festival they run. Number 2, focus on the experience. Remember I told you people go in there, they go for nature, they go to spend time with their friends, they go to spend time with their family. Put seats in there, wooden seats, make them participatory. Meet the gardener. One thing Disney changed, it's the only thing that Disney does. Cast members at Disney are not allowed to speak to the to the visitors. So Mickey Mouse will never say a word to you or your children. It's all done very much without any verbal connect. Gardens, when they do their garden thing, is the only one where they encourage the gardener to talk to their participants. So as opposed to putting your gardener in at 5 o'clock in the morning and telling him or her that they can leave at 9, ask if they'd stay and chat and talk about the garden. Ask the doctor. That should read ask the plant doctor. I mean, you can ask the doctor if you wish, but ask the plant doctor. And the desire to go behind the scenes and see something different is really quite a strong element for participation and experience. Strategic investments in technology, that's what Dave talked about. Text chat, digital membership cards, apps. You'll see some apps coming out. GPS maps, scavenger hunts and games. Dave showed you those. And lastly, program growth to be competitive with those guys that are eating our lunch. For example, opening in the evening. Next slide, please. Anna, you'll see here, this comes from a group of gardens in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The primary organization is the garden, and you can see that beautifully straight blue line where people are coming all throughout the day, or they're not coming in the evening. Yet their competition, that's that Pier 1 and Pier 2, they're eating their lunch in evening attractions in October. October through January, the fall season, and maybe that's the kind of thing that we should be looking at. So next one, Anna, so because we've got to start winding up here. So 6 things you can do tomorrow. First of all, invite your local visitors and convention bureau, not to phone them, but tell them to come to the garden. We want to show you our garden and what we've got to offer. They're your best marketing area for visitors to come. Invite your local newspaper to write an article on your garden, or better still, write a press release for them and do it on a monthly basis on what's new in the garden. Yet again, my dear friends in New England Botanic did their wonderful job with that every month, saying what's new in the garden. The newspaper is desperate for that kind of what my newspaper friends called fillers. So give them a filler. Remember I told you about the Ryman Botanic Garden in Iowa? Then you should hold a 1-hour strategy meeting where everyone has to come up with one idea for one new experience in the garden. And everyone has to do it, whether it be the assistant gardener or whether it be the executive director. Tell the APGA, particularly on that strategic plan, and Visit USA, those people in London and Washington, and the head lady is in Stowe, Vermont. We need more garden visitors internationally, and we won't get it unless we put it on our surveys. Now, I want you to chat with Engage, and Dave's going to give you an offer about engaging mobile experiences. And the last one is invite me to your garden and we can chat. And by the way, I will come for nothing. I'm retired. I can drive. I might have to bring the dog, but otherwise, we can come and I can chat about whatever you come up with in 1 to 4. I would be delighted to help you all out as much as we can, such that we do indeed get new visitors. In the meantime, Anna, want more international visitors to your garden? This was my flyer that I provided at APGA on the left. So as earned income becomes more and more important, financial diversification to deliver your mission, we need more visitors. And so that's the little company that I have with a grand staff of me and the dog. And we can deliver, I can let you know what you're there. We can start, if you wish, with zip codes and zip code analysis and how you can explore your zip code analysis. So that would be great. On the right, I'm also publishing that book, the third I said. Thank you, Fishing 11. Critical Issues in Garden Tourism Management. It comes out in 2024. As I said, I'm retired. I have a dog, he needs dog food. So if you would buy a copy, that would be great, or at least get your local library to buy it, that would be good. And Dave has an offer comparable to mine, which is, as I say, free invite, and I will come to your garden. Dave?
Yeah, we oftentimes are asked if we can do a technology assessment, and we do those complimentary. And I'll bring my dog as well. And so maybe we'll come at the same time that Richard is there. But should you want a group of experts, I mean, we've been doing this 15 years, we'll be glad to just look at all of the technologies that you're using, see if they're up to snuff and see if there's anything that maybe you should be adding. So complimentary, and glad to do that for you folks.
At the risk of alienating one member of our audience, Dave, I'm perfectly willing to go, as I say, to our member gardens today to go and have a look at what you got. But I ain't coming to Cape Fear this weekend. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. So anytime after this weekend, I'd love to see Cape Fear, which I'm shamelessly admitting that I haven't been to, but I'd love to come and see Cape Fear because I've heard so many good things about it. So thanks.
Richard, we've got a question. Yeah, we have a question earlier about AI, and Chris asked a question, is AI available in text messaging? And yes, Chris, we use AI not only in writing the text, which can be a little tricky to make text sound really fun and interesting, as well as in the responses. So that's available. But maybe, Richard, what do you hear when you talk to all the executive directors and presidents? Does AI come up? And if so, what do you talk about?
I think we're very much in the infancy stage now with us in AI. That we're still trying to find it out, and I think I'm at the same level. I'm not an AI expert. I've spoken to a couple of people. We've actually made reference to it in the garden. There's a whole section on AI, but it certainly has a lot of potential for us. But it also has a little downside. So we need to do another session on that sometime. AI and gardens, and if Dave sets that up, you won't want me speaking, but I can certainly recommend 2 or 3 people who can speak very well about the future of AI and where it's applicable, what its applicability is. So James has got something, just beginning our explanation, and are excited. I'm afraid, James. Yeah, James, I'm not excited.
I'm afraid. It's a double-edged sword. It can be so helpful, but it's also so scary because there's no boundaries, and that's what that's what's a little fearful. How about we have a few more minutes. How about a few more questions for Dr. Ben Field, and then we'll wrap this up and send everybody the notes in the morning. This has been such a fantastic presentation, Richard. We just all learned so much, and I think everybody walked away with 5 to 10 new ways to think about tackling the problems of engagement and getting a larger audience.
Dave, just Stephanie from somewhere has just posted. You said gardens are eliminating signs. Can you elaborate? I'm not too sure they're eliminating signs. I don't mean that I can't recall saying that, to be quite honest, Stephanie. Maybe you misheard, or maybe you misread what I said. I do know there's a couple of things that handheld maps are still very important. Walking around a garden, our visitors seem to be very tactile. They like maps. Now, this may be a demographic thing. I don't know. Certainly, Dave's got answers that you can use it on your phone. But I was just at the Cornell Botanic Garden last week and waiting for my dear friend to come, and 4 people walked up, families, and said, do you have a map of the garden? And I'm thinking, like, this idea of tactile is still there. Signs, I think, are actually really very important. I don't know whether they're eliminating them, and at the risk of offending Dave, I'm not too sure that the smartphone will ever do that. But yes, we will. Let me know further, Stephanie. We can do this privately, but we can talk at some point about what you thought I said and what I really mean. And
I think I had mentioned that the clients that we've been dealing with more recently, there are 2 camps on the signs. Half the garden staff doesn't like them, and half of them think that we should have bigger and greater signs. The mobile technology allows folks to not necessarily increase the number of signs because you can get some of that information on your phone. On the map question, we probably got 20, 30 different gardens and outdoor spaces that still hand out the paper maps, but the demographic of 15-year-olds to 30, 35-year-olds, they're not used to paper maps. Richard, you and I love a paper map. We take a map, we look at it, we know how to use a paper map. Younger folks like Anna, our head of marketing, and most of the folks in our company, it's not something that they have grown up with. They are so digital. So if I could scan a QR code, get it on my phone, even though you and I look at that and we think it's a much smaller form factor, but it's got some advantages because the little blue dot will show you where you are and you're a little off the trail. You should be over here. So I am a map person. You're a map person. I love picking up a map when I come into a venue, but I do think the younger audience feels more comfortable on a digital basis.
Okay, Mark, I'm going to answer a bunch of questions here real quickly, Dave, as we go through. First of all,
Excellent.
to Stephanie, I'm jumping the queue here. Stephanie, I'd love to talk to you with you about your new sign project to encourage engagement. I think that would be great. Get them through the doors and then engage them. That's the mantra, of course, we have. So let's chat. Whoever Stephanie is, I'm sure you can let me know where you are. Secondly. And I mean this sincerely. This is absolutely sincere. Mark, am I willing to come to Hawaii to assess needs of Botanical World Adventures? Yes, and I will probably be in Hawaii in January. I have a friend who owns a house on the north shore of Oahu. I go to the 5 botanic gardens in Hawaii quite frequently with I use them quite shamelessly. And I even go to the ones in Kauai as well. So yes, stay in touch. Love to come and see you and have a look at what you're doing. That would be just terrific. Melanie from sent a note saying, do you have any best practices for connecting to outside partners to help develop the experience that you mentioned? Outside, it depends what you mean, of course, for outside partners, Melanie. Do you mean people that you can actually retain, whether it be origami or whether it be lights or whatever, or people that you do joint things with, like breweries and shelters, dog shelters and whatever it is. So yes, only half a day at the site. Who should we be including? And I think partnerships with places like, I'm not averse to museums or theme parks or those kind of things, but I think what our best partners tend to be people like museums, other cultural attractions, symphony orchestras. I know a garden that did I think it was Garden, and I can't remember the composer's name, but it was like Gardens and Mozart, and for the admission to the garden, you also got a ticket to the symphony that night. So there's a bunch of partners like that I know would be willing to work for you. Stephanie would be glad to or Melanie be glad to have a chat with you about that further from that. Stephanie, you're from Florida, you're Bok Botanic Gardens. Millennials in audience engagement that count numbers into traditional. In numbers entering traditional visitors, volunteers, part-time staff, and wealth transfer over the next detail. Well, Chris, I could do a 6-hour lecture on that. That would be great, where we talk about engagement for everyone because the one certainty in this whole discussion is we're all getting older, as you rightly point out. So how do we keep changing with them with engagement? Millennials for engagement is really one of just giving them experiences. My daughter would never go to a botanic garden unless there was something there like breweries or a date with her boyfriend or some of those kind of things, or a Match.com venue in a garden. Those entering traditional retirement age, that's selling memberships and getting them to come and volunteer. Everything, of course, but human resources and part-time staff. I think we have a real potential for that, and I think that's the kind of thing we're going to have to do more of, given the labor market. And wealth transfer, boy, boy. I mean, that's your development officer gets on that to try and get some of that money there. That again is a whole new seminar in terms of how and where you get development money. But yet again, I think we are perfectly positioned as a attraction, as a cultural institution, as an element of American life to be a favored son or daughter for endowment. So yes, that would be great. Yep.
Well, I think we've exhausted our hour. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you for everybody and their great questions. We'll still hang out here. Put your email and your name in the webinar chat. So in case Anna and I don't have it, we've got it. We'll get those over to Richard. So anybody that wants more information from Richard or from me,
Be
just
glad to provide it. Yeah.
yeah, glad to provide it. And we will send the recording tomorrow. We'll also keep the webinar going in case people still have more questions.